Welcome to the third episode of Imagine Film Festival podcast of 2024. That is under the theme of 1984 Reimagined. In the previous episodes, we've already covered the movie 1984, directed by Michael Radford in the year of 1984. We've covered the conversation with a scholar who spoke about the languages of Utopia, and we spoke to Pete Helderblom about his essay film,
drawing the parallels between the book of George Orwell in 1984 and the actual year, 1984.
So we've looked into the past, and we've analyzed basically what kind of diagnoses we have received from the filmmakers from earlier days, and from the writers. And now we want to look into the future, and we wanted to ask you actually to aid us in this task. So the filmmakers that actually screened their movies at Imagine this year. And we wanted to see where your inspirations come from, why you choose to deal with futuristic subjects. But when I say futuristic, it doesn't necessarily also mean that, like we're using let's say the circumstances, the milieu of the future, but also we really try to use our imagination to explore different scenarios of of how life might look like, how our anxieties might develop into certain realities, and most importantly, how we can deal with them, which is not something that we necessarily need to find in your movies, but maybe we in this conversation can actually find some creative strategies, like the strategies of making or responding to the world that can aid us in this task. And we kind of chose a little bit this word, and we like the double meaning. So, like speaking about, double speak and the new speak and double think, and, all the words of Orwell. If we wanted to create a tool out of this linguistic tool, a positive one, what I find very interesting is this ambiguity in the word responsibility, because it's being responsible about the reality around us, but it's the ability to respond, responsibility. So like basically using fantastic fiction as a kind of a training, and regardless if that fiction is basically dystopia that is just there to warn us so we're not surprised where things come, or it actually offers some positive scenarios. We have three very different movies made by directors that we invited, each employing very different storytelling mode, different strategies, some more abstract, some more direct in the way that they approach storytelling, all very, in one way or the other, humorous, although, of course, with some tragic consequences. But I think in this diversity, we can find some variety of strategies that we all can draw inspiration from.
Exactly. So we chose your films because they are a product of the past, the predictions of the past of a future, or what you consider to be the dystopian themes, the future that where we're headed, where we are, where we could have been. And for that, we're gonna invite first the creators of A Taste of Friendship, which are Merel, Hogerheijde, and Sammy, Shefa. Welcome, guys. So while you take a seat, we would like to ask you one very crucial question. We just thought that it would be interesting to listen to all of your answers, because you have such different perspectives on one same theme. And that question is
there something that bothers you or scares you about the reality of today?
Oh my God. I think what the thing that takes me out of reality for like a bit, like for a moment, is when I am in the metro and when I try to feel like more grounded and put my phone in my pocket and then look around me and see everyone looking at their phone and not connecting at all. It's maybe a corny example, but like those kind of moments like really takes me out of it. Like it feels like I'm in a Black Mirror episode.
That's true, because you're disconnected And when you see everybody connected, do you feel like being disconnected is the wrong thing to be doing at that moment?
Exactly. But like also going back to my phone feels like also weird. Like I'm following in the same thing that isn't very natural.
Like you're obligated to go back to your
Exactly. Yeah. So when I look around me, then it feels so weird. That
Do you have any personal strategies for actually becoming more grounded and more present than
diving back in my phone? No. It's, yeah, like sometimes also trying to not listen to any music as well and just really listen. And like it sounds like it's a normal human thing. I don't know why it sounds also as something that shouldn't be weird, but it's like really like trying to listen to conversations that could pass across you when you walk, those kind of stuff. Yeah.
What about you, Merel? What scares you about the world that we're living in today? I know it's a very broad question.
It's a very big question, I think. I think the theme that you can also see in our film is something that I'm scared of, the climate change, those kind of stuff. But it's also, what scares me is that it all feels so big and everything feels very big. Also because we're on our phone constantly. So you see everything, but it's not in your direct, it's not in your direct surroundings. So you see everything and you everything is up here, but you can't really do something about it. Or you can, but it feels that you can't, and we can make films about it, but that also feels very small, too small for the big problems.
I think I know what you mean. I think that one of the best things and ultimately worst things about social media and internet is that we know about every horrible thing that is happening at the same time. And then that just makes you feel even more helpless about it. Then the only thing that you can do is repost it on Instagram. That for me, that feels wrong. Like it's nothing. So I refuse to do that. But then again, that the inner dialogue, like, then am I the problem for not following that? I think you tap into something really interesting there.
I don't think we're made to consume that much information, but we're forced to. It's such a normal thing to see everything, read everything, watch everything, and then our brain is not made for it. So
what do you do, or what is one thing that you like to do to cope with that, to try to stay grounded, to try to stay sane?
I don't think I found it yet. I don't know.
Making films, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Trying.
But this is very interesting because, of course, like making can be one of those strategies of addressing your anxieties. But there's so many creative strategies of doing that. And fantastic fiction is one of them. But that uses very specific set of tools. So, for example, you extrapolate in your film, of course, like an existing problem of today, but you go way further into the future, or so we believe, because it might be around the corner as well. We don't know much, I think, about the timeline. So, I mean, historically speaking, there's not been like so many genre films coming out of Film Academy, for example. Yet I think there's a little bit more now, like the school embraces genre a little bit more, but it's not the most obvious direction, especially that this movie is just absolutely mind-blowing in the way it's made and it looks. It's just absolutely phenomenal. But what made you choose this particular strategy to address that concern, like to really use the frame of sci-fi and the speculative thinking about the future?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so as you mentioned, we both graduated from the Film Academy, and at the Film Academy you have this one project, an extra project you can take on that's called the X project, or Project X, and then we have a lot of conversation with all the departments and about what is important for us. And it, like at that moment, it was a lot about climate change and those kinds of stuff, and how real it also felt. And that word real, that was what we wanted to evoke. So the best way for us was to work with virtual reality. We dived into a group that was already like trying out how to work with virtual reality. How does it, how do you work with those kind of systems and settings? But for us, it was very important to make it as real but abstract as possible. So we wanted to strip you away from all human necessities and give you like only a few options, and what is then the human essence that you want to give. So the word real, that was the thing we really wanted to focus on.
I was also interested when you were developing that story, like how much of a world building did you do for yourselves? Because like I really like how your film drops the audience in the middle of a certain situation, and you really need to figure out like, okay, what are the circumstances? What are the rules of this world? What happened? Why are we all of a sudden in a drought? And then, like there is this storm coming. Like what happened? Like you really need to deduct that. And I think like it's a very beautiful economic storytelling as well, that you leave so much to be deducted on the audience's part.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering how much did you tell yourselves about that reality and how we got from here to there?
Yeah, I think to add up, and I think Merel also has like a good thing to say about that, is me personally, I'm from Friesland, and in Friesland we have the Waddeneilanden, and like it's once in a, like I think once or twice a day that the water goes down, and then it strips you away. So you really, like maybe back in the days you were very dependent on nature, and that's what we wanted to evoke. But I think we also would weather things. I don't know how that was.
This project was, we stepped into this project, and then production design was already working on it, and the visual effects guys were already working on it. What you were telling about a real world, I think it was a combination of how we think the future can be, and to keep it very small. So we, our inspiration was the Dutch landscapes, and we searched a lot of images. We, like Sammy told about Friesland, and then my grandparents lived in Zeeland, and they experienced waterstootramp. Ik weet niet in het Engels.
That's okay, we get it.
Yeah, I think those kind of small personal things we used to build this futuristic world.
And I think that's very key in world building, when you pour personal experiences of things that you have witnessed into it to make it feel real. And I think that's something that we can say about A Taste of Friendship, is that it feels real, and it's scary how real it feels.
I think also because we had a very good production designer, and so we worked with virtual reality, so a big screen, and then all the landscapes were made by VFX, and then we had his house was built by the production designer, and she looked for all the materials on the beach, and it was all recycled waste, and so to make it real, so that the actor can also play in a real house, but then the surroundings are all fake.
I think I have one last question about that. What kind of conversations did you have while making this? Like when you realize the type of future that you're portraying, the type of situation that you're portraying, the necessity for contact and for feeling social with any living being is overshadowed by hunger. What kind of conversations do you have while making this? Like those spontaneous conversations, or like, do you realize what the fuck we're doing right now? It must have inspired so many like good discussions on set.
Yeah. I think we had a lot of conversations, a lot of versions as well from the same script, and it was like very much on the details as well. I think we talked a lot about ethical reasons, and we also wanted our producer Flip, he also really wanted to make it as green as possible, the whole production, and how the ethics work. Like, do we want to work with a real fish or not? Is it a silicone fish and then and a piece of wood? All those conversations really are like on the details and very important to us, and also about the whole giving the audience just enough so they can make it their own. And that's also how we think that the future also is, like you can still shape it and still shape it to your own interpretation. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
a little bit. I was thinking more on a practical basis, because once, of course, you pour like an idea into a film, but when you're making it, like new ideas that you didn't have, that you didn't know that you had in your head, like start coming up, and it's like I didn't realize that what we're doing is tapping directly into what I feel about this or that, and that's what I'm more interested of, like the process of making this film. That what kind of ideas or what kind of discussions sparked between the crew, more than just like, okay, we're making this.
We had a lot of conversations because the subject seems far away, because it's a world we don't know, but it's the main character is dealing with feelings that we can all imagine. I think loneliness or hunger or whatever, not that kind of hunger, but yeah. So we talked about it a lot, and I think because of the techniques we used, it was very much like talking, ideas, and then you had like 10 ideas, and then 9 of them were like, no, that's not possible. Okay, so it was also the practical side of it was really much an oppervlakte.
I also wanted to add, like, we really also used this school, like, graduation film as also our biggest playground ever. So we really, and I think maybe you can also see that in the film, that we really all tried stuff and didn't know if it was going to work or not. So we also had sound design on set. So the actors and we all could hear the wind and the rain and everything. We had like live visual effects from the screen. We had a production designer and a production team who also were live. So we really wanted to take the whole team into that reality of that we created in the whole landscape. So it was like a lot of trying and a lot of like just see if it works and really trying to take the opportunity of all the new technical equipment that was.
What I want to still ask, because you touched upon let's say the artistic ways of responding to some of those issues, but there is one that you mentioned before that is also technological. You said like the production was concerned with being green and environmental impact. And I think what is interesting about that project, I've been involved a little bit on the side as well, that was actually the environmental impact or the benefits of using virtual production in comparison of actually organizing the set on location. But also some other benefits, which is basically making all this environment in post-production, which would take way more time and way more computer power. Can you actually cast some light a little bit about that as well, like how that process went?
The post-production, you mean?
The virtual production with the LED screen and...
Yeah, so we all, because we wanted to be as green as possible, and it is hard, especially in filmmaking, but we all did everything in school. So the studio was in school, the virtual production was also in school, everything was in school, so we didn't want to have a lot of cars riding around. Like it was, I think, only one car, and it was the virtual production LED screens. And after that, it was just like, I think your normal filmmaker, but still trying to also think of the details. So we didn't have a lot of paper or scenes on paper, but like watch it on our laptops and try to do the sound designing on set, but still knowing that like it's a hard thing because you have like equipment and then sound goes wrong. So it's still making a backup plan for that as well, so it doesn't take as much time as needed. So it was an interesting thing. It was very much like still a tryout as well. Yeah, but it was an interesting process to go through.
I mean, I would like to talk to you more about it the next time. We still have a screening pending, which where we'll ask more questions. But for now, we've run out of time. But thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much for coming into the podcast. And, well, we cannot wait to see what you guys do next.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our next guest will be Noorda, who is presenting his movie Lunatic. at the festival. Before we ask you our usual question, which we ask to everybody, we wanted to ask you about there is a subtitle to your movie, which says that it's an improvisation.
Yes.
Can you cast some light on that? Like, why did you choose to mark it as such?
Well, for all filmmakers, but especially animation, when you have your creative process, it's in the scripting and the storyboarding, and then, especially with animation, you're a slave of your idea for a couple of years, indeed, in the case of animation, which is very tedious work, frame by frame. And I'm an artist, and I don't like that. I like to work and do spontaneous things and
feel free.
Yeah, and let the coincidence and the creativity of the moment be there to grasp and involve in the production. And therefore, it's an impossible film process to ask funding for, because you can't deliver a storyboard or a script because you don't want to. And then the funding say, no, we can't fund you. But in this case, funnily enough, I had funding afterwards by the Film Fund, which I'm very proud of that they...
That's great. So it was all an improvisation, and I think out of the films that we're gonna touch on today, it's a more cynical take on what the future holds. And first, I want you to tell us a little bit about what Lunatic is about for those who haven't seen it, for those who are about to see it. A little bit of an introduction for it.
It's about a astronaut called Antonio who was left behind on the moon after his coming out. And his co-pilot went on with the lunar module elsewhere. And he stays there for, 40 years and tries to do all kinds of things like terraforming and gives a message to humans on Earth about the film is in basic it's about waste. We produce waste everywhere, even in outer space, and that's a thing which is like you have seen in the film Gravity, a serious thing. It's really a threat which competes with climate change to be which one will be first. One of them will trigger our
demise.
Yeah.
And you said before that, normally this type of filmmaking, like, it's very tedious and it takes time and doesn't allow for much of improvisation. So how did you create this time, like, conditions for yourself to actually be a little bit more free and allow yourself to move on as you go? Like, for me personally, it's a very close subject to my heart, because, like, I usually embrace this notion of essay and essaying as using your medium to help you develop ideas further rather than having preconceived ideas and just committing them to the medium or a paper.
Yeah.
So how in the end do you found a way to make an animation that allows for a certain free-flowing mode of development?
Well, of course, there were themes, and it's an approach like a jazz musician that allows the spontaneously created ideas. But the main thing was a poem which I wrote and a drawing I made when I was 15 for the Art Academy acceptance. And this drawing is about this anatomical statue which is standing like this and trying to fend off a danger from above. And that's and in the drawing there is a lunar module landing and the moon lander approaching and trying to get away. And I had this idea when I was 15 from, I wanted to make that into a movie sometime. Well, and now I did. So it's on the other hand, it's also something which really goes back a long time.
And how did that vision come from, like, the idea from a man fending an evil from above into this criticism of consumerism and just, like, leaving trash wherever we go? Like, when did that idea morph, like, over the years?
Yeah. Well, in the poem, there's this sentence where Antonio says, the same sentence, but a little bit altered when the first step on the moon was. But, I hope I can recall it now. It's one small scrap for men, but one giant heap for mankind. And that's when that strophe hit my head. I thought, well, okay, it's going to be a film about waste, and there is a lot of waste involved. I mean, all the items, the props, and the scenery is made out of waste or recycled material. Even that huge spaceship that I made when I was in my industrial placement at the Toonder Studios in 1984, exactly 1984.
Shout out.
It's no coincidence.
Shout out.
No coincidence. And I made this spaceship, and it was made out of old audio cassettes and coffee cups, plastic coffee cups, and all kinds of waste material. It's all built up of lids of perfume bottles or all kinds of waste. And that ship, a huge spaceship, and my girlfriend then liked it so much, she wanted to have it on her ceiling. And when we broke up, I didn't get it back. But till 40 years later, just in time to fit in this film.
So you went and asked for it just for the film? Or did it come back organically?
Yes, indeed.
Let's just say yes. Okay, but back to the subject. Now that you've told us that in a way you've been collecting and putting together these waste over the years as key pieces one by one to finally make something out of it, tell something out of it, then we ask our usual question, like, what about this world today really frightens you?
Well, lots of things. The polarization, things getting so much more black and white, in not only in political views, but climate impact is increasing. And one of the most, my strongest concerns is about trees, the production of oxygen, the greenery. And the next film will be about giving the voice to the forest.
And again, like a similar question as before, because of course, like this movie flows beautifully. Like you let yourself go in this, like as you compare it to jazz improvisation, and there's this beautiful spoken word, and like there's a humor, but the humor covers, of course, like a very sad feeling of loneliness and abandonment. But in the background, there's still Earth, like observed from the moon, and there's certain things happening to that Earth in the background. So
absolutely.
So what happened? Like, and of course, we follow mostly the situation on the moon. So, like in your mind, like when he observes Earth, and it changes color, it becomes red, and then there's this ring forming around it, like a Saturn, or like like. So what happened? What happened?
Yeah, well, that's still that waste thing again. All those satellites and space debris which collide together, and I presume that when this Kessler syndrome, as it is called, when all the space debris destroys all the satellites being involved, or even Putin, who made a couple of weeks ago launched a secret military satellite to destroy satellites. That'll evoke a total incommunicado, which will in turn jeopardize logistics, food distribution, electricity. Everything will break down, and that'll be a huge risk we are all facing. And I predict that might evolve into a there's a kind of it's a bit exaggerated, but it'll turn into a Saturn-like ring around the Earth, made out of silicon and metal, and gives a bit of shadow on the Earth, which will cool it down a bit again, which is good.
So it's all cyclical in a way.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. I did not expect that one. That last bit. That I mean, it is true that things tend to settle and things tend to fall back into place. But I think this is the first time that I heard that maybe if we continue with this path of waste and it might be in benefit for the planet, maybe not for us.
No, not for us.
But definitely it would cool down the planet. What would happen? I don't know.
Yeah, the tardigrades, they'll survive. The beard eaters, the moss piglets, also known as the tardigrades, and the Israeli tried to do a moon landing remote session, but it crashed, and they had tardigrades on board. So the moon is now loaded with tardigrades. Tardigrades can survive in space. It's an animal. It's a small, tiny animal, but it can survive in space. And now the moon is littered with it.
That is crazy.
So what will happen to all those props right now after the movie is the process is finished?
Into the container. No, they're all hang on the ceiling
and maybe in 40 years.
I'll make another film with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you ever reuse props? Sorry, do you ever reuse props and elements?
For instance, the astronaut, he is a reused prop. He came along and he wasn't involved in the film in the beginning, and he took over the film. He really, hijacked the film.
It's funny because that is something that Phil Tippett, our guest of honor this year, also said. It's that reusing just creates this way of familiarity with the subject, and then it becomes more real. He said something like that. But and you of course can relate to what Phil Tippett says. Okay, now that you've explained to us the thing that you fear the most, how do you cope with it besides making this very that's the word right now.
What is the word that you're looking for?
Or English is not my first language. But Tom, if you're hearing this, we'll cut this bit. It's,
Dystopian?
No.
Humorous?
Humorous.
Cynical?
Yeah. This cynical way, this cynical story, the cynical view of the future rather than hopeful. How do you then keep hope within yourself?
Doing the right thing for yourself. Doing things which are green. I use a lot of green screen. I really try to be a responsible citizen of this planet. I mean, I've had the honor to be a time at the Hopi Indian Reservation in New Mexico, Arizona, and they have this saying. It's in the film. We didn't inherit this world from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. And with that wisdom, if you practice that in life, it works.
That's why I wanted to insert you when you started with the cynical, because I don't find this film cynical at all, actually. I think this, speaking about the strategies of responding, I think cynicism is for me a strategy that can bring only, some kind of it's not a strategy for bringing any change or improving things. It's just coping with the fact that everything is just going to shit. So I think what I find here, it's there is humor, and of course there is this underlying sadness and recognition that comes from facing the actual human emotion and reality of that unravels. But that humor, for me, the humor is the coping strategy also of the character. There's no other way. He's alone. He's there at the moon. There is no way out. But
is the only faggot on the moon, and therefore, as a minority, it's a majority as he is on its own.
Yeah. So maybe that's one of the strategies of response. Like humorous approach, but not an escapism, but like approaching things with humor and then finding ways to expand the positive aspect of what's happening.
There are a lot of references to other filmmakers and artists and situations. Like, for instance, Dictator of Chaplin. It's involved in the film as well when he's playing with the Earth as a balloon, and he is a great example. Or Terry Gilliam, that's my great example. Both are filmmakers that use humor to address very serious things, issues.
And it's very interesting also, it ties to another previous episode of our podcast where we heard from Simon Perry, the producer of 1984, because 1984 is the slap in the face. This is the bleakest vision of the future and the big warning sign. Brazil of Terry Gilliam is kind of like a little bit of a reverse, treating the same problem and the same subject, but from the position of humor, and also like offering a little bit of at least a bit of escapist utopianism at the end. But the funny part that Simon revealed to us was that actually when 1984 of Michael Radford was being shot in London, whenever they went in London to shoot, Terry Gilliam was already there shooting for Brazil. So like both those films were basically being shot almost at the same locations.
And they shared sets at one point.
Really?
Very small parts that you cannot tell, but he said like we borrowed like stuff from each other.
Oh, great.
Two sides of the same coin.
I mean, if anything, now that we're wrapping up with you, Robin, I would just like to underline that thing that you just said, because me as a father of a 3-year-old, what you just said like really resonates with me. Of we don't inherit the land from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children. I think that's a really good way to think about where we're going next. So I want to thank you for coming. Thank you. I mean, we still have your screening to do on Saturday.
Tomorrow.
And then we would like to shed more light into the film then. But thank you so much for coming to talk to us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And the crowd goes wild. It's Bliss Grabs.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now our third and final guest that we would like to invite up and talk about this is Joep Gerrits. And please, Joep. I said Joep.
That's all right.
But it is Joep. Could you please tell us a little bit, like, what's the film that you're bringing to Imagine, and tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, the short that I made is called Our Friend the Robot, and it's a fake program from the 70s, where the sort of educators are coming to tell us about robotics, but it's shot like it's 1977 or something. So the robots are these very clunky metal bricks that are obviously super inept at everything, but the people presenting are like, these things are the future. They're like,
they
respect our jobs.
They care for them.
They'll be our neighbors. They'll star in movies. So it's basically about expecting a lot from technology. But 70s, with all the hairdo and the costumes, which we had a lot of fun with.
It's a great fake TV show. I had a blast watching everything because you really capture the awkwardness of the scientists and the robots themselves, and then how visionary they may seem back in the 70s, but in our eyes here in 2024 they seem just like pointless.
Yeah,
there's a way that's something that I want to like congratulate you on, for thinking about what could have been visionary back in the 70s, but pointless now.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
I'm wondering if you modeled it after some concrete science show from Dutch TV, because immediately my reaction, I watched it with my girlfriend, and it sparked those memories. I grew up in Poland, and I watched the same type of programs in the 80s with the same type of music and the same type of leads. And, it was like, wow, like, where is this coming from?
Well, our Dutch audience will know in the Netherlands, we used to have Teleac, which is this sort of a sort of television education about every topic imaginable. And they did some things about programming, about computers. And it was a little before my time, but of course now with YouTube you can just dive in and spend like hours and evenings like going through all this stuff. And I was super inspired by that, like the awkwardness, the way it was visually designed, the music. It's all very an ode to that, but it's not really a takedown. It's I hope that people view it as very loving, because I really like the visual style and I like the dress sense and the costumes and the hair and everything. It's not a takedown in that sense. It's it's a sort of celebration of how stupid it looks. Actually,
in the end, it's a movie about love. So
that's true. Yeah, love.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, a man's love for machines.
Yeah. So actually, that brings us to our usual question. So, are there any things that you fear or are you concerned about in the reality around us? And is it AI and robots?
Oh yeah, it's a difficult question. I'm a pretty optimistic person, but there's a lot in the world, of course, to be not so happy about. And I think AI is interesting. I have a lot of different opinions about it, because there's so much to say and to think about AI as a subject. But I think maybe I have to preface it by saying something else, that this is basically the first film with a budget that I made. Because I have a background not in filmmaking. I didn't went to film school. I studied in multimedia design. And the reason I wanted to make films is because I was interested in it as a medium, but I also really just love visual design and production design, which is why I also went to the showing of The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, so I can be in the same room with Phil Tippett, because he's like a stop motion hero, of course. So this short started just with, I want to build some robots, and I built them myself in my shed in my backyard. But it just started pure visually. I want to have robots. I want to have people with 70s suits, and I want them to be in a room together, and that's what I want to do. So the satire of the short was never it sort of followed on the visual. But it's true that it makes a point about the way I think we as people deal with technology, and it's about projecting and hoping and have such big expectations about technology. And I hope that when people see it, they think they can laugh about, people in the 70s were a little bit naive. But I also hope that they translate it to now and think like, are we expecting too much from technology? Because like there's a scene in the movie, in the short, that they introduce like, well, there's a robot that knows how to act, and it stars in a movie, and it's very build up because it's like a big deal, right? And then it shows, and it's just like it's like a metal box on a pole acting against like a woman, and it's so I hope it's supposed to be so stupid looking, because that will never be a replacement for a human actor. And of course
I want to see that film.
Yeah, of course, I love to see the film. But yeah, and of course we're in the same area now with people like producers or middle management or management thinking, we can just fire the humans and have robots do the acting for us or whatever.
Yeah, or
and I'm skeptical
their way into a film, like they think that with enough prompts you can create something. And
just now, a week ago, there was actually a massive scandal in Poland because there was a radio that was usually very involved, like socially and politically, and they fired their whole crew.
Okay.
And basically they hired AI, and there were basically 22-year-old, 23-year-old, and 24-year-old AI that were doing like interviews and shows and everything.
Right.
Like about socially relevant subjects, and at some point, like it caused a massive controversy because they made an interview with a dead Polish poet, Nobel Prize winner, and everybody was like, "Okay, this is
going too far."
But there's a beautiful scene in your film that I thought was so much on point because there's so much humor. And by the way, I would love to own like an action figure of one of those robots because they are spectacular. But there is this scene where there is a machine that lets you look into the brain of the robot and then the brain of the human.
Yeah.
And that, for me, is such a spot-on recognition. And we spoke also earlier before the show with Robin for a moment about certain associative mode of thinking, also like synesthetic. And I think like you really capture another problem, but the difference that people sometimes don't realize about forms of intelligence and the way that we think as a human.
Yeah.
Humans. Can you cast a little bit of light on that? And was it your intuition also that difference, or also that comes from some research on how the mind works, or?
Mostly intuition. Yeah. I wanted to make the point sort of that the thing that makes like like people interesting is the fantastical or the associative, but also the dark, like the things we shove down inside. So I wanted to end the movie with showing that the host of the show, which is the person in the short that is expects the most from the robot, actually has weird stuff down somewhere inside, and that's what makes him an interesting person. Actually, the first draft of the screenplay was about him. We would discover that he had a crush on the co-host, but I decided against it because I didn't want it to be. I would sort of verve into the romantic or maybe even like the sexual, but that's not really the point. The point's about he loves machines. So when we view in his head, he is obsessive with these robots, but his obsession is exactly what makes him an interesting person. And also, which is creative, but also fantastical, but also a little bit weird and also a little bit dark. So yeah, and I'm not, just to clarify, I'm not like super against AI. There's some, of course, arguments against it, like, okay, you scrape material from the internet that was made by other people. And my fear is not really that it will actually replace like real creativity of people. My fear is much more banal. It's like management replacing people with AI because they think it's a shortcut to something else. That's the real danger. The danger is not, and we will never, our creativity will always survive, but maybe in a sort of capitalist context, people will get replaced because it's cheaper. That's the real danger of AI.
But I think that scene is also a beautiful testament to human creativity, because I'm also by no means opposed to AI, and I think it's a wonderful tool. But I think like you show like a very poignant difference between like the mode of reasoning and like recognition that these are two different forms of intelligence.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because there is a prompt to which the robot responds in a very particular way. And then the way that human gets to, like a human person, like gets to his answer is this beautiful associative process. It's like, oh, what is the capital of Rome? It's not of Italy. It's not like, bang, this. It's like, Italy, shoe, heat, pasta, something.
I went there for a holiday,
bang,
maybe.
Bang, yeah. And this is, I think, also like kind of a beautiful testament to creative process, and also as a strategy of response, that, like our minds not always just cling to the most obvious answer and come up with an answer immediately. It's just like, it's wondering, and that gives us possibilities of maybe, breaking out of those conundrums, or like...
I think associative thinking is the basis almost of creating. But then that's one of the positive things about artificial intelligence, that it helps us to think about and talk about what intelligence actually is. Because you can say, well, some lines of code, is that intelligent? No, because it's actually just copy and pasting elements of what he already knows into something new. But you can also argue, well, isn't that also sort of a metaphor about the way we create? Because we take elements that we already know and have and combine it in new, surprising ways. So I'm not saying like in that way AI rivals us yet, but I think it's an interesting. You can use AI to think about what like human intelligence actually means, because we can reflect. We have a machine now that is starting to learn to do the same thing that we can. Like, wait, is he trying to look like us? Is he trying to? And that's actually one of the points as well in the movie, that our obsession with tech is also it's slightly egocentric. because
It's very romanticized. It's like they're
very
romanticizing
like the-
technology.
yeah, but like the highest mark of like a program is if it looks like us. So if it's able to do what we can do, then we call it intelligent, which is it's funny if you think about it. Like it's starting to have to look like us, but maybe it can do something in a different way. It doesn't have to be our form of intelligence.
I mean, I think it was Guillermo del Toro who said very recently that AI has proved itself adequate to make semi-appealing screensavers. That's about it, because it lacks the human element out of it. And I think that your film, in this particular case, how we've talked about waste, we've talked about global warming, and now we're talking about artificial intelligence, is whether you meant it or not, the film was made at the right moment in time, because right now we're romanticizing the evolution of technology, and it's so polarizing in a way that some people are completely against it, and some people, and most of the people that favor artificial intelligence are like, of course, there's bad things about it, but actually, I think it's a good tool as well, like you just said. It's either no, it's the fucking devil, or it's like, no, it's okay. Like if we control it and if we regulate it, then it's then it's an excellent tool. So how much is it romanticizing what's coming next, or being terrified of what's coming next, and being logical to this is what has happened every time that that technology has taken a big step, or a big or like a big evolutionary step into our kind.
The short, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, your thoughts about it. You made it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the sort of the satirical point came very organically. Like I said, I wanted to make something in this world, and I started writing down ideas, and the sort of idea of, we're expecting so much of tech just came it sort of bubbled up to the surface. And in that sense, I think it's now looking back, and I didn't realize then, but now looking back on it, it's I think it came organically because it's now again relevant. So in that way, it's weird. It's a movie set in the 70s, but it's of course also about this moment now. And I think in terms of taking sort of a stance on that, what you say, the area between super skeptical, I don't think it doesn't. It's very soft in its satire. I think it's very general in the sense of people responding to technology. It's not like, I don't see my short as like a manifest against anything. It's very lighthearted, and I think we can laugh a little bit about ourselves. And it's not like a big AI warning or anything.
Of course. I mean, there is for sure a dystopian element to relying too much on technology. Whereas in Lunatic, there's a dystopian message about being more mindful of the waste that mankind makes, or in A Taste of Friendship, about climate change. Which is why we picked these three short films that are screening at Imagine this year, that are touching on dystopian subjects in very different approaches. And well, first, I just, before we round up, I want to thank you, Joep, for joining us, for joining the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Yeah, the stadium.
Sorry.
Of you want to say?
Nope, I just wanted to thank on my side as well.
So
thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. But we wanted to actually see if maybe you still have questions for each other. I know that you didn't really have a chance to see your works. But I mean, for me, it's really interesting how they're dialoguing together, and like how many also overlaps are emerging through this discussion. Also, like even on the production side, and certain meticulous approach to set design and props and everything like that. That is something that definitely is a connecting thread.
Because unless I'm mistaken, like Robin, you used some artificial intelligence in your process. If I think it's the narration that it's through artificial intelligence. So what's your relationship with it, and how can you relate to what you speculate Joep's film is? Talk to each other.
speculate about what this film is.
No,
That is that's difficult. Yeah, AI. Yeah, for me, it is an enormous, interesting tool on the one hand, but there is this distinguish danger as well. I mean, in my film there are some newspapers, and there is a scene about AI. Antonio the astronaut meets the successor of the HAL 9000 AI computer from Kubrick, and there is this newspaper article which I let ChatGPT write, and it's about AI, the total takeover. And that was the prompt I asked, and just write an article about what will happen if AI takes over. And that article is in the film, but it's not readable, so I put it on my website. But it's chillingly accurate and stunningly dangerous, and I think I've triggered AI to become self-aware. So that it is dangerous in a way.
But just to come back to very technically speaking, like you used it to generate the replica of your voice that then became Did I understand it correctly from the credits, or?
Yeah, indeed. The voice of Antonio is AI, and my own voice, I let AI use it to generate the voiceover, because the poem evolved so vigorously, and it was impossible to do re-recordings each time, and so this was a very pragmatic way of using AI as a sound tool for voiceovers, and
As students from the film academy or recently graduated, right? How do you feel about artificial intelligence in film? Like, now you're seeing a veteran like filmmaker just saying like, okay, let's go for it, and I'm just going to use it to my favor. But as the next generation of filmmakers, how do you see that?
Yeah. For me, like, I love AI. Like, I really love how it develops. I think like it is scary at times, and it can also take in jobs. But for us, we didn't really use AI in our film, but we use AI only to speed up the process. So for some fill-in things or for some visual effects things to speed up the process, for that it's amazing. Also for like the practical things like writing some stuff, grammar things. But it would never, for me, from my opinion, replace a human mind and how we think and how we can feel. Because film is visual and it's technical, but it's also much emotion, and that's a thing that AI would never, until now, could control. But I think it's a good thing to also to keep track of the where the technology is going, and to keep in mind where it is, so you at least can know if you make a choice to use it or not. But that's my opinion. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what is very interesting thing, and that emerges from this conversation as well, and I think that I really wanted to be the little bit that I was hoping for it to be a feeling of this last episode, is that there are all these things, and it's very easy to fall into this dystopian mode of thinking. And dystopias can be very useful because they can act as an incredible warning and a warning sign. But, like, we also need some positive scenarios, and like all these things, like, we think AI, we feel Skynet, because of course, like, it's so attractive to say a story of things going wrong. But then, like, it offers all these possibilities as well. And in a sense, it's a little bit in our hands of like where we push it. Do we embrace it as like co-creative tool that is also different than us, and kind of try to find a space for it that is productive? Or are we going to turn it into those monsters that we're fearing?
Yeah, I think the like science fiction dystopians are there because they tell an interesting story, because it's very heightened. Of course, we want to see I don't know, The Fly or They Live or The Alien or whatever we did. It's heightened because it's like or Terminator 2. It's dystopian makes for good films, basically. And the weird thing is the most utopian things are mostly when people try to sell us products. It's like, look at this shiny, beautiful car in this void or whatever. It's very like sterile because it's like something that is supposed to make us want it, like sort of the Elon Musk way of selling things, like the bright future or whatever. But I think the truth is, and it's much more in the middle, and it's much more everyday and banal. That's sort of the point that they're trying to make with AI. It's like, it's not a robot breaking into your house and killing you in like what you would see in a movie. It's very banal. It's like shifts in like in the job market, and that's not. You can make an exciting movie about it because it's not exciting. But I think the true dangers of sort of the downsides of technology are very banal and everyday. I think that's but it doesn't make for good filmmaking. So.
Yeah. But I think it's also a very interesting challenge that we maybe can pose to ourselves as makers as well, like to try to think of those narratives that we can come up with that are not necessarily like 100% dystopian. But when thinking of the inspiration for this episode, we of course like thought about names like Ursula Le Guin a lot, and what Jessica Norwich in the previous podcast called critical utopias. So basically, not the worlds where everything is beautiful and goes well, and not the worlds in which everything goes to shit, but actually the ones where people do try laboriously, like come up with better solutions and like using that kind of frame. And it's difficult. It's difficult storytelling because like like it's so attractive, as you said, like to just fall for this like big warning and catastrophe. But it is, I think, a possible line to thread. I think this year at the festival, Artificial Justice is one of those examples of a movie that takes AI, in this case, AI in legal usage. So basically used to help judges actually rule on the cases. And the point that it makes is actually, okay, it's not about embracing it or not embracing it. It is there. It's more about who owns it, like who prompts it, who decides on whose interest it actually is applied for. So.
What you said is really true. It's never white. It's never a utopia. It's never a dystopia. I mean, utopia literally means no place. So, and what you said about a utopia being sterile, like, yeah, they're lifeless. They like the color, they like the humanity. Always in movies, a utopia, they're always hiding something. So it's like this sense of utopia being unachievable. During the conversation that we have with Pate after the screening of his video essay, one of the people said like maybe we stop chasing utopia because every time that someone tries to make a utopia, a lot of people suffer. And the example that she put was like, Hitler, dude, he was hoping for utopia at the cost of billions and then millions, and just like destroying a part of society in the name of his utopia. And on the completely opposite side of dystopia, it's also what Simon Perry said. Simon Perry said like there's always gonna be the little guy fighting for it. There's always gonna be So it will always stay in the middle. I mean, Simon had a very particularly vision about why the world from 1984 would never come to fruition.
Remember? I mean, the most interesting thing, because like everybody seeing this movie, it's one of the most bleak possible versions of whatever might await us, and he sees it as an absolute satire.
Yeah, he sees it as a comedy, which is incredible.
He says our experiences of those totalitarianism prove that this vision is so bleak that it's against our human nature actually to ever create a system that would be so uniform. And he's just like, because of that, he actually finds it humorous, which is, like he has a very particular sense of humor, I have to say, then. But
of course, the whole Orwell idea is about like totalitarianism and the state, like keeping information from you so you're not informed. But actually, I'm not super scared about it as well. I think the problem is more like what we said before, like so much information that it's impossible to know what to care about. I think that's a much more real danger than, the sort of the Orwell way. But it's more like Brave New World in that sense than 1984, I guess.
Just wanted to add that if one is striving for a new utopia, it turns out to be a dystopia.
Yeah.
So that.
So yeah, we need balanced narratives.
Balanced narratives. So guys, please give us that in the future. Okay, I think this is a great moment to stop the episode. Thank you so much to everybody that came. Thank you, Merel, Sammy, Robin, Joep. Thank you for your films. Thank you for coming to talk to us about this.
I have nothing to add but the gratitude, for you guys coming over and for your movies. Like, they are really wonderful, and I've had such great time watching all of them, and they show amazing promise for fantastic cinema in the Netherlands, I guess.
Thanks.
Good.